The Sodder family house, perched atop a gentle rise in Fayetteville, West Virginia, exuded warmth and cheer on Christmas Eve 1945. George and Jennie Sodder, Italian immigrants who had built a stable life in America, gathered with their 10 children. The modest two-story home glowed with the soft light of a Christmas tree and the chatter of excited children. As the evening wore on, Jennie urged the youngest children to bed while George sat by the fire, recounting stories from his youth in Sardinia. By 10 p.m., most of the household was asleep. The older children lingered, exchanging whispered secrets and jokes as snow began to fall lightly outside. Jennie awoke later to an unfamiliar noise, a sharp thud on the roof followed by a rolling sound, like a stone tumbling. Startled, she lay still for a moment before dismissing it and falling back to sleep. Moments later, the acrid smell of smoke seeped into her room and she bolted upright. Flames were licking up from George's office near the stairwell. Panic spread as Jennie shouted to wake the family. George, disoriented, ran to help the children escape. 4 of them, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr., managed to flee into the freezing night, some in their night clothes. As the inferno grew, the Sodders realized 5 children, Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jennie, 8, and Betty, 5, were still inside. George attempted to re-enter the home, but the fire raged uncontrollably. He smashed a window, cutting his arm, but the thick smoke forced him back. He yelled for the children, but no cries came from within. In desperation, he ran to fetch a ladder to climb to the 2nd floor. To his shock, the ladder was missing. He then tried to use his trucks, planning to stand on them to reach the windows, but neither vehicle would start, despite functioning perfectly the day before. Marion ran to a neighbor's house to call for help, but the operator did not respond. Hours later, the fire department arrived. Too late to save the home or the children trapped within. As the first light of Christmas morning touched the ruins, George and Jennie combed through the ashes, praying for closure. Yet no bones or remains of the 5 children were found. Authorities theorized that the intense heat had completely incinerated their bodies. However, Jennie, unconvinced, began conducting her own experiments. Burning animal bones in her stove, she observed that even after hours of exposure to flames, fragments of bone always remained. Adding to the mystery, investigators found that the house's phone line had been cut, not burned, as initially believed. The missing ladder was discovered in a ditch far from the house. Neighbors reported seeing a stranger stealing a block and tackle system near the property that night, a device used for heavy lifting. The Sodders' grief soon turned to suspicion. George recalled an incident a few months earlier when a traveling insurance salesman had threatened him. "Your house will go up in smoke," the man warned, angered by George's vocal criticisms of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. The local police dismissed this as unrelated, but the Sodders were not so sure. In the months following the fire, Jennie began hearing whispers of sightings. A woman at a Charleston hotel claimed to have seen the children accompanied by 2 men and 2 women, all with foreign accents. The children appeared nervous, she said, and the adults were unusually protective of them. George, consumed by hope and desperation, began traveling the country following leads. In 1949, the family hired a private investigator who found a photograph of children resembling the Sodder kids in New York. Later, in 1968, Jennie received a photograph of a man who bore a striking resemblance to Louis. Written on the back were the cryptic words, "Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie. Lil boys." A 90132 or 35 inches. Unable to let go of their children, George and Jennie erected a large billboard near their home. It displayed photographs of the missing children and a plea for information, offering a $5,000 reward. The sign became a local landmark and symbol of enduring grief. George died in 1969, his heart heavy with unresolved questions. Jennie followed in 1989, still refusing to give up hope. The surviving Sodder siblings, though haunted, carried on the search, but no definitive answers ever emerged. The Sodder children's disappearance remains one of the most haunting mysteries of modern America. Were they consumed by the fire, or did someone take them, orchestrating a night of chaos to mask their crime? The evidence hints at foul play, but the truth remains elusive. Jennie wore black every day as a sign of mourning and left the billboard standing until the end of her life. After Jennie's death, the surviving Sodder siblings dismantled the billboard. Though they carried on the search for their missing brothers and sisters, they sought to move forward in their own lives, balancing the weight of the mystery with the need to find peace. Today, the disappearance of the Sodder children remains an enduring enigma. Theories abound, ranging from kidnapping orchestrated by the mafia, retaliation for George's anti-Mussolini views, or an elaborate plot to sell the children into adoption. Others believe the children perished in the fire and that grief clouded the family's judgment, leading them to imagine clues where none existed. What is undeniable, however, is the Sodder family's unwavering love and refusal to let their children be forgotten. The story endures as a haunting reminder of how even the most ordinary lives can be touched by extraordinary tragedy, and how the human spirit can cling to hope, even in the face of the unknown.